laboratory. Okay, laboratory. Some people, or the Americans, say it like this: laboratory, laboratory, and laboratory. So, of course, there are some people who pronounce it as laboratory, like this, which is, of course, incorrect. Laboratory. This is incorrect, sadly. So I think we don't need all of this. Let's just delete it. And then get back to section 3. I think we have solved this one. So let's carry on. So, just a moment. All right. So we're talking about what we expect to hear, right, during the third section here. During the fourth section here, or in this question, which, of course, 3 areas of research will take place in the ISS. He said solar energy, plant cultivation, so maybe solar panels. Maybe plant cultivation, so seeds, plants, or agriculture, maybe. All right. I'm just going to move this one down a bit here and write on it. Okay. So maybe agriculture. What about mapping? So making maps? Maybe it's cartography. Just a moment. Okay. So, by the way, cartography is the study of making maps. Okay? Of course, it's not necessary. This word is very unnecessary. Overkill. Okay? But it might help. What about the next one? Mapping. Weather patterns, so I don't know. Studies in weightlessness, psychology, and nutrition. So maybe health. But it's very far away. This nutrition and health can be health maybe through or healthy food. Maybe. Okay. And psychology can be referred to psych. Okay. It's psych as in psychology, or psyche to be more correct. Psyche. Weather patterns, so maybe forecasting. A weather forecast is news that come before the weather. So of course you have about a 1-week forecast before the weather comes. You can get it on your smartphones. Let's just listen to this one.
Track 19. The next question relates to what we're going to be doing up there. Well, we'll have teams of astronaut scientists working in the labs, and research will include, for example, tissue culture, though that won't include plants as such, observations of the Earth from space with a view to improving our maps, and the development of new commercial products. And of course, everything we do involves studying life in low gravity as we're in a state of weightlessness. And then, in addition to this, we'll be keeping a very close watch on the mental state of our astronauts, because we're interested in finding out what the long-term effects on the human psyche will be.
Very clear. Okay, so you will see that the first one was mapping. The second one was studies in weightlessness and low gravity, and the human psyche. Let's go ahead for the next one. This one. Which 2 things do all the astronauts, be very careful of this, do all the astronauts, not some, all. This one could be the meaning or the difference between you get 2 marks or not. 2 things, all astronauts. Okay, so we turn on the computers, maybe. So maybe turn on the computers, cook meals, right? Or maybe preparing meals. Who knows? Attend a meeting or conference. Okay, a meeting is also a conference. Listen to CDs, listen to music. Maybe take some exercise, or maybe physically, or get some physical exercise, okay? Physical training. And communicate with family, maybe send and receive emails. Emails, phone calls, maybe sending something over WhatsApp or so. But this is what you need to understand. Try to rephrase each of these answers, okay? Don't waste time, right? In rephrasing, just understand that the answer will never come literally, okay? It will not come letter by letter. For example, here he said psyche instead of psychology, and things like mapping, he said develop our maps. Okay, let's play
Track 20. Another thing people always ask us is about our daily routine on board the space station. Well, you need to be real good friends with the others because it's a small place. The first chore of the day is to ensure all is well with the many systems. Then this is followed by breakfast, which is timed to take precisely 45 minutes. Experts have decided that togetherness around the dining table is psychologically important, so meals of pre-packed food are eaten together. Mail, which is received overnight, is read around the breakfast table, followed by a daily conference. So getting together is inescapable, even in space. Recreational time's pretty minimal. Some astronauts read, others listen to CDs. One guy I knew just used to stare out the window. Then each day, in order to offset the ill effects of being cooped up in such a small space, we have 2 hours set aside for compulsory physical movement. Work rosters occupy 6 12-hour days each week. Sundays are for rest and communication via emails and video conferencing with family back home on Earth.
All right, so we first take a look at the answers. I would say take some exercise because it's compulsory, right? And attend a meeting maybe. But I've also noticed that it can be communicate with family. Okay? So it's one of these. How about we listen again and cross all the incorrect answers. I'll do it as I listen. Okay, please follow.
Track 20. Another thing people always ask us is about our daily routine on board the space station. Well, you need to be real good friends with the others because it's a small place. The first chore of the day is to ensure all is well with the many systems. Then this is followed by breakfast, which is timed to take precisely 45 minutes. Experts have decided that togetherness around the dining table is psychologically important, so meals of pre-packed food are eaten.
He said pre-packed food, so no one cooks meals on the ISS.
Together. Mail, which is received overnight, is read around the breakfast table, followed by a daily conference.
A daily conference, so people attend a meeting.
So getting together is inescapable, even in space. Recreational time's pretty minimal. Some astronauts read, others listen to CDs.
Some astronauts read, others listen to CDs. So it's not all the astronauts.
One guy I knew just used to stare out the window. Then each day...
By the way, another keyword here is each day. Okay? So I'll tell you why F is wrong. Okay, so
in order to offset the ill effects of being cooped up in such a small space, we have 2 hours set aside for compulsory physical movement. Work rosters occupy 6 12-hour days each week. Sundays are for rest and communication.
So the work is 6 12-hour days per week. Some days are for rest and recreation.
Via emails and
rest and communication via email.
And video conferencing with family back home on Earth. Some days are for rest and communication via emails and video conferencing with family back home on Earth.
So you can see here that communicating with family is also done by all members, but not every day, which is why F is also wrong. So my final answer again is E and A and C. C and E. Okay, let's carry on now to following a talk. All right, this is the key method or the key strategy for you in section 4 to be able to follow a talk without being bored or without missing information. I'm not talking about following every single word, but understanding what the man is trying, or the woman is trying to talk about. So let's take a look at just a moment here. We're talking about first, let's take a look at what does the speaker think could be extinct. Just that. All right? Please forget about 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right?
Track 21. Example. In previous lectures in this series, we focused on land conservation. Today, we're going to look at the need for marine conservation, and in particular, the effects of commercial fishing on our oceans. Because if we're not very careful, a great many fish are likely to end up on the endangered species list.
A great many fish, okay, a great many species of fish could end up on the endangered list, endangered animals list.
Today, we're going to look at the need for marine conservation, and in particular, the effects of commercial fishing on our oceans. Because if we're not very careful, a great many fish are likely to end up on the endangered species list.
A great many fish, okay? So let's listen again. Okay, here's the text, okay? He said a great many fish is the answer here. Okay, now we just play the recording again since we have the transcript, okay, so that you can just enjoy listening to this lecture without having the pressure of answering this question here. This one. All right. I'm just going to follow the conversation.
Track 21. Example. In previous lectures in this series, we focused on land conservation. Today, we're going to look at the need for marine conservation, and in particular, the effects of commercial fishing on our oceans. Because if we're not very careful, a great many fish are likely to end up on the endangered species list.
An endangered species is a species which is endangered. Actually, it's a very rare species that is unlikely to survive, that can become extinct, meaning it does not exist anymore, okay, if we're not very careful with it. Okay, let's get back here to the 3 questions here and try to solve the questions while understanding and following the talk. You don't have to, you just need to read the question once and understand what they're asking for, and then forget about it, forget about the question, just focus on the meaning of the question, and then follow the talk.
Track 22. Listen and answer question 1.
All languages share the same aim, but it seems from linguistic research that there's nothing in any language, for instance in the grammar or sentence structure, that is indispensable. And each language achieves the common aim, that is, to communicate thoughts, in its own way.
Okay, according to the speaker, what is the main purpose of a language?
Question 2.
A ballad is a narrative poem which tells an exciting story. Ballads were first created hundreds of years ago, in the days when there were no newspapers and very few books, so people would tell stories instead. Many of the earliest ballads told tales which were frightening and full of superstition.
Question 3. Agriculture is one of the most ancient human activities. So it is remarkable that very little was known until the late 1600s about how plants grow and reproduce. In today's lecture, we are going to look at the life of the man, whose name was John Ray, who effectively invented the study of botany.
Question 4. Heat tends to move from places where there's a lot of heat to places where there is less. In today's talk, we're going to look at the 3 ways in which this occurs. The first of these is conduction. The second way is convection. And the third way is radiation.
I like the last question. Anyone can answer this one provided he just went to school. Okay, so let's just get this out of the way here. Conduction, convection, and radiation. Okay, radiation. By the way, the speaker had a little bit of, I would say, Scottish or Irish in his accent. Okay, what about the rest of the questions? We'll listen to the first one again.
Track 22. Listen and answer question 1. All languages share the same aim, but it seems from linguistic research that there's nothing in any language, for instance in the grammar or sentence structure, that is indispensable. And each language achieves the common aim, that is, to communicate thoughts.
The main purpose, she said, or she paraphrased it into common aim. Common aim. So, the common aim of every language is to communicate thoughts. Communicate thoughts. Next, what 2 things were absent in the period when ballads were popular?
In its own way.
Question 2.
A ballad is a narrative poem which tells an exciting story. Ballads were first created hundreds of years ago, in the days when there were no newspapers and very few books, so people would tell stories instead. Many of the earliest ballads told tales which were frightening and full of superstition.
Okay, so the answer is very few no newspapers and very few books.
2.
A ballad is a narrative poem which tells an exciting story. Ballads were first created hundreds of years ago, in the days when there were no newspapers and very few books, so people would tell stories instead.
Okay, so the 2 answers are no newspapers and very few books. Newspapers, and books. Okay, so here are the 2 answers. For the second question, you have to write them both. Okay, especially if they are the answer for just one question. Okay, one number in the from the 40 questions of the IELTS test. So you have to answer it correctly. 2 words. Newspapers, books. Otherwise, you lose them all. In what field was John Ray a pioneer?
Many of the earliest ballads told...
Question 3. Agriculture is one of the most ancient human activities. So it is remarkable that very little was known until the late 1600s about how plants grow and reproduce. In today's lecture, we are going to look at the life of the man, whose name was John Ray, who effectively invented the study of botany.
Who effectively invented the study, this is a new word, of botany. Botany. Okay? For those who don't know, which is, to be honest, everyone, including myself, Botany is the study of plants. Plants. Okay? Plants. For Americans, botany is the study of plants. List 2 or more ways. Okay, it's conduction, convection, radiation. We don't have to waste time over it. Let's carry on. Alright, so here we are. And this is what a typical section 4 looks like. A very long section. Okay, a very long section. Okay, and you will never have time to read all of this in the time given to you in section 4 only. So, for section 1, try to read as much as you can. Maybe you can read until here, right? And then you will read from 5 to 9 maybe in section 4. That's much better than just reading 3 questions in section 4, right? So, let's see how much time is given to you for section 4.
Track 23.
Good morning, everybody. Now, last week we were looking at the positive effects that computers have had on our society.
Again?
Track 23.
Sorry.
Good morning, everybody.
So, you will see, it's not in the recording sadly, but there will be very little time for you to read questions 1 to 10. There is a small pause here between questions 1 to 5 and questions 6 to 9 and 10. This small pause is only 2 seconds, 2-3 seconds, okay? So try not to be thrown off or try not to be confused by this small pause, alright? It's a very small pause for you to rest before continuing questions 6 to 10. But let's listen to the recording once without answering anything, and then listen again.
Track 23.
Good morning, everybody. Now, last week we were looking at the positive effects that computers have had on our society. This week I'd like to talk about one of the negatives: computer viruses. Okay, so what is a computer virus? Well, it's a software program that's been created by a human programmer with the single intention of corrupting and destroying useful programs. Put in simple terms, it's a way of causing lots of trouble for ordinary people. It's known as a virus because although it's not a biological organism, it functions in a similar way in that it looks for a host, that is, a body, your computer, in which to live and multiply, with the one aim of destroying that host. Let's go back 50 years. In 1949, the first model of a computer virus program was presented in a paper by John von Neumann. Soon after this was published, a game known as Core Wars appeared on the scene. Core Wars was initially created for intellectual entertainment by 3 Americans working on large mainframe computers. By the 1980s, for the very small sum of $2 postage, anyone could get details on how to play Core Wars and create programs that could escape from the game and destroy other programs. Computer viruses are picked up in much the same way as their biological counterparts. That is, through contact with others. And this can happen very easily, as literally millions of people are in touch with each other by email every day. Virus programs are often intentionally placed within useful programs such as commercial websites, or they're included in software that you might have got from friends or downloaded from somewhere without knowing its real source. It seems quite hard to believe that anyone would go to all this trouble to intentionally spoil the data of other people. But the rise in the number of computer software infections and the amount of lost data that we are seeing these days is proof that these attackers are going to extremes to do just that. going out of their way to create programs that hide inside legitimate software and cause all sorts of errors that their victims will then mistake for hardware failure, believing that the problem lies with their own computer. There are many types of virus, such as worms and Trojan horses, and each has its own purpose. One function of a Trojan, for instance, is to destroy and delete files on your computer. They attack by generating a lot of email and internet traffic on your machine until it becomes completely overloaded and you can no longer use your computer. It then does the same to your friends' machines. Bad enough, you may think. But a Trojan also allows the attacker to use the victim's computer to purchase goods with stolen credit cards or access illegal websites. So, what can we do to combat these people? Well, the first thing is to realize that virus programmers succeed because people are not always careful about where they get their programs from. So, number one, be very careful. And I don't just mean that you should be careful about the source of your software. You also need to take care with emails and avoid any messages which are suspicious looking. So the second golden rule is avoid trouble. For instance, do not open any message that says, "I love you," or "win $50. A third thing we can do involves trying to find out exactly how the viruses work. In other words, we need to understand the viruses. And of course, there's a good selection of antivirus software available on the market now to combat the virus plague. So another way of protecting ourselves and our computers is to be well prepared. If you follow these basic rules, you really shouldn't have any problems.
I thought there would be a small pause between questions 1 to 5 to 6 and 9, but as it turns out there wasn't. Usually in the test there is a pause. There is a small pause. Anyway, you will notice that the text is the speech is very long. 5 minutes on my recording, about 4 minutes and 50 seconds. 4 minutes 51. Alright? So, I really hope the text isn't too small for you. We'll just read the text one by one. First question: what does the speaker compare a computer virus to? All right. Just a moment. Anyway, let's get back here. What does the speaker compare a computer virus to? Okay. One is a biological program, a biological organism, a corrupt program. A corrupt program is the second choice. Corrupt meaning facet. C, an irritating person. An irritating means someone who annoys you all the time. Hello, 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 how are you, how are you, how are you? Okay, he is very annoying. What about the second one? Cold Wars. Okay, remember that British people almost always don't pronounce an R after a vowel. So they would say Cold Wars. Okay, he didn't pronounce any R's here. Cold Wars, okay, was designed as a model virus, or a form of amusement. A form, the Americans would say form, but the British would say form of amusement, okay, and a low-cost program. 3, the speaker says that computer viruses are picked up because they can infiltrate programs by themselves. Infiltrate. Infiltrate means to go inside forcefully. So you can infiltrate maybe, well, if you play video games a lot, you can infiltrate the enemy base if you're a spy, jasus. Okay, you infiltrate, so you enter without someone or without someone allowing you in. So the speaker says that computer viruses are picked up because they can be sold with commercial software. So so they give you a CD. Hello, this is a CD that has, I don't know, Microsoft Office, and here's another CD next to it that has a Trojan. Enjoy.